Welcome back to my car shop. Today, yes, we're back on the 70 Challenger project. I'm going to fabricate the frame rail for the passenger side of this project. So let's get right after it. Let's see the show intro and don't go away. 30 seconds, that's all it takes. You get an overview of some of the stuff we're doing here and then we're going to get right into this. So,
working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
yes, I've been chomping at the bit to get after this. And today is actually supposed to be shop cleaning day, and believe me, it needs it. My deepest apologies, Mark, but the show must go on. The cleaning can wait. But we are fabricating the frame rail, the rear part, that 3-foot chunk that I talked about in the last episode on this. A lot has happened since then, of course, where we took a trip to Texas and I showed you the parts that I bought when I was there. If you didn't see that travel episode, which was more about travel than car, but I found it kind of a fun little break from everything, so check it out. And if you haven't seen the other episodes on the Challenger, go over to the playlists and you can follow this from the beginning. The first several episodes are just basically little clips. At that point I wasn't intending to make this a show, but I've left them here for historical purposes, so you can see this car right from the beginning when we dragged it out of the field where I got it. I wished I had pictures of it when my buddy got it. There is one picture of it on the flatbed that he had it hauled to his house with, so maybe I'll put that there. So yeah, I gotta move one of the cars out of here. I gotta get my sheet metal out of the back of the shop from the Oakland there. I'm gonna do the cutting a little bit differently today. So why am I talking about it? Let's just do it. God, Mike, just shut up. You talk way too much. Got the metal laid out here now, finally, on a couple of my fender stands. This is about 3.27 weeks later than where I started this video because, as is usual, I have about 4 batteries around the shop, and 3 of them were basically dead and wouldn't work to start a car. So I got putting them on the charger. Hopefully they come back. If not, I guess we'll be getting some more batteries. Typical. And the funny part is the 2 new batteries are the ones that won't work, and the one that is working is a really old one. So go figure. Anyway, I got the metal laid up here, and as is typical also, the edge is pretty wonked out from whacking pieces off. So I want to just go here and square this up again so I have a good straight edge to start doing the new layout. So we'll take a little time to get that done, and then we'll start laying it out. And I've got to go back and find the dimensions again. I think I remember what it is, but I need to find the dimensions on how wide it is. And if I can't find that, I will either remeasure it or I will go back and watch an earlier episode and see what I did. Good thing about having this on YouTube. You got to be careful when you're going along that you don't have something underneath it. I just burnt all of my rubber protector on that. Whoops. I thought I checked it, but I didn't. So anyway, I got a decent straight edge. It was a little bit rough on this end, but that's okay because I'm only going to use about 3 feet of it anyway. That was just me. This isn't the best straight edge in the world, and I wasn't holding it steady, so good enough for squaring it up. Now I've got some nice little scrap to use for other projects, so I'll set that aside. And now we'll start laying out the width on what needs to be done here to be able to take this over to the brake and get our 3-foot chunk and bend up the piece that we need. All right, I had go back and watch that episode. I don't remember which episode it is, but if you want to see that, I will try to remember to insert it, but if not, you can go back and find it. But I had written down the dimensions on a piece of cardboard, and I put it somewhere where I wouldn't lose it. So go figure. Anyway, so the piece of metal is 10 inches wide that I bent that other frame rail out of. I found that in the video. I found a picture of the piece of cardboard and I screenshotted it. So it's 3/4 of an inch wide. So 3/4 like that. Hopefully you can see this. 3 1/4 down, 2 inches across, 3 1/4 up, and then 3/4. So flattened out, that's 10 inches wide, of course, by 3 feet is what it's going to be to fit my brake. I'll double check the dimension to make sure 3 feet is an accurate dimension. And the other thing that I found in the video as a reminder was don't bend these two bends here 100%, only bend them about 60% to start, because it's tough to bend this one if you bend them too much, and it'll be easier to go back and squeeze that a little bit more. So I'll probably go a little more than that, but I want to remember the struggles that I had. As I think that last piece was only about 18 inches long, and give or take, I didn't check that, it doesn't matter. But being as this one's 36 inches long, it's going to be a little bit tougher to squeeze this up with this heavy gauge steel that I'm using. Again, if you didn't catch that in the episode, the factory piece is stamped out of 16 gauge, which makes it, and I've measured it with my dial caliper, it comes out to just a little bit under 18 gauge when it's all stamped into place. So I'm using 18 gauge, which is just a touch bit heavier than the factory frame rail. So 18 gauge is pretty stout. 16 gauge is virtually, I won't say virtually, it's difficult to work with anyway, so I'm glad that I'm able to use the 18 gauge. If I was having to do this out of 16, and I've done work like on rocker panel, inside the rocker panel and stuff with 16 gauge, I would be doing this a completely different way. I wouldn't be able to be using the sheet metal brake most likely. I've bent 16 gauge on it, but it's a little bit small. I would need a different brake for that. So anyway, just a little segue there. So this is what we're going for. So I'm going to go lay out a piece 10 inches wide over there and get that nipped out with the plasma cutter. And then we'll have that piece. We'll cut it off as much as I can fit in the brake, which should be 36. And we'll start getting this profile bent up for that frame rail. Then the other thing we have to do, if you remember, the length of this frame rail is up so many inches from here. I have to make a little V-cut. Because this actually is a little bit bent like this, so we'll be needing to put that in there as well. That's coming soon, but we're not there yet. So you can see I got a nice straight edge here with the plasma cutter. Down here it's rough because I just wasn't steady in my the way I was doing it. I was using this piece of track, which is actually to hang my punching bag on. So I can slide it out from the wall and use it. I use it where it is right now, but it'd be nice to be able to pull it out in the middle where I can work on it a little bit more to get back into my MMA training again soon, hopefully here. But anyway, that's what that's for. So it was a good straight edge, but it wasn't the best piece to use, but it's a piece I had that was long enough, good enough for what this is for. So 10 inches, which is out here. Come down here to where the edge is. Still decently straight. Okay, I'll put a couple more marks in there, here and there, just to keep me on the straight and narrow. I can't go down here because this edge does come in, not much, but it's just ragged. So I will just continue that on. I'll find something a little bit better than this piece to use to draw this out. I've got a yardstick over there that maybe is straight. I wouldn't bank on that, but it might be. Actually, I just answered my own question here. As long as I stay past this crappy edge, this should work. I'll just double check that. Yeah, it's pretty good, but I'm going to use the yardstick. It's got a little teeny bit of a bow in it, but not much. Actually, I have this little radius tool that I use, and I can show you that sometime, but put it on a pin, or drill a hole, or put a marker next to it if I want to cut a curve. So you do this, and so anyway, that's what that's for. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yeah, that lines up a little bit better now. You know, give or take a 1/16 to an 1/8 is fine with this. It's not rocket science here. I would love to have a mark on the other end, and yet I feel like my overlap in here is going to give me plenty of material there. And just using a marker, wipe the metal off a little bit. I should probably be wiping it off with something a little bit better like Prep Sol, but reason for that is the marker doesn't get full of gunk and then not work anymore. Okay, we'll check that with a tape measure down there and make sure that's within an 1/8. Well, I'll be dipped. It's 10 inches. Oh, we were off a 1/4 inch down here. Good thing I didn't do that, eh? So yeah, we'll be fine. We'll just make that straight. And like I said, I can use this for something else, this little square. I didn't check the thing yet, but I'm going to mark off 36 where that's at, which is well beyond my crappy area. I could have gone down on that end and used the factory edge for this. I prefer to save the factory edge for something else if I need it. This isn't as critical as something else on the car might be, so I try to preserve the factory edge as much as possible when I'm doing this. Obviously, the first time you use a piece, you got to use the factory edge no matter what. That factory edge is true and square, and if I need to make an external patch that I need a good straight edge on, it'd be nice to have that. So I'm working my way that way unless I need to. Then I'll go down to that edge and cut it. All right, let's check the brake and see how wide that is. Be right back. Okay, so it is exactly 36 on the brake edge itself. So now the next thing I need to do is go through and lay out those dimensions as we just discussed. On the last one, I may have just scribed it. I think I'm going to go ahead and do this with a marker. Not being quite as accurate on this one, but I feel like I've done one already. I know what to watch for, and I think we'll be okay doing it that way. So I could be wrong. If I am, I'll share the mistake with you because I try to share everything. Scribing gives you a little bit better mark, but I think I'll go ahead and do this with a marker. If I change my mind, you'll see this being painted. Okay, so I got my dimensions written down here because I forget crap from 8 feet away. And so I wrote them down on my hand and carried them over here. So we're at 10 and probably should lay this out from the middle, which would be 5. So I need to draw a center line. Make sure that my center line looks good here. The tedium of the details, but I really want to share with you guys everything that it takes to do this. Some might say this takes too long. This is the stuff I enjoy. I'm not necessarily a terribly detail-oriented person, but there's a real sense of satisfaction in laying something like this out. So if this is 5 inches to the middle, that means that my piece needs to be 1 inch on each side. So from this edge, we will measure out 4 and 6. I could have just done that right up front, but I like to lay everything out. I don't like to take anything for granted. The other thing that does is if I get something off, it allows me the opportunity, because I'm always to check it, because I'm always seeing it against that center line, if that makes sense. So if I'm going along here and I lay these out and then I draw these lines and I see something's not right, I can start double checking myself, because I have my baseline down the middle. I've got my edge line over here, of course, and that'll give me a good idea what I need. And you notice I'm doing all of this layout before I cut this piece out. Why is that, do you think? Insert Jeopardy music. Except we can't, because it would be a copyright violation and then YouTube would flag the video. Because that way, if I calculated something wrong, even though I've done this before, if I've calculated something wrong, I haven't wasted a chunk of metal. So again, double check, double check, double check. So if everything falls in line like it should, okay, now I got my 2-inch piece across. Now this seems a bit wide, and I think I mentioned that before, but by the time I bend this, it's obviously going to, this is the outside, so it's going to be a little bit skinnier. Now these pieces look uniform here, so they should be 4 inches, sorry, because it's 3 1/4 and 3/4, yeah, so that's right. So we got 4 inches there and 4 inches there, ish. Okay, I got an issue here. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me double check. Looks a little bit skinny on this side. No, we're good. It's okay. My line is drawn just a skosh inside, so when I cut it, I will cut it just a bit wide. It'll be fine. So we're looking good. So now we need to do our 3/4 here. Again, everything is coming from this edge. So we're going to do our 3/4 in here. Especially on this one, I want to be very diligent in going down and making a bunch of marks, because this edge isn't perfect. It's a piece of frame. So then if this one's 3/4 here, so we're 3/4, 3 1/4, which would be 4 inches, 6 inches. So then 6 inches plus 3 1/4 would be 9 1/4, right? Seems like simple math, but you never want to assume. Okay, we'll draw those lines out. One edge of this isn't quite straight, the other one is, and I've got a little arrow on here to tell me which is the straight edge. Good. I don't have one on this side though. Yeah, for some reason when this was cut, it was cut just a little crooked on the one side. So I know that about it, and good enough. Okay. I think that's pretty good. Yep, this is just ever so slightly skinny. So what I'll do when I cut it is I will cut it, I'll put an arrow here to remind me to just cut it about 1/8 of an inch wider than. That's why I lay it out. It would have been okay had I not laid it all out, of course, but now that I've laid it out, I know where I need to be. So again, all your dimensioning comes from this one edge this way. I put the center line for reference, and just 3/4, 4 inches, 6 inches, 9 9 1/4, and then of course 10. So somehow when I did this line, it's just so bizarre because yeah, it's literally a 1/16 off. So I just drew it a little on the thin side. So I'll cut it on the fat side and it'll be fine. Another thing you have to remember and consider is when you're using the plasma cutter. By the way, I found a nicer piece of wood up in my woodworking shop that's got a really good straight edge and it's thinner. So I'm going to show you the concern here. Is you want to make sure that wherever your plasma tip is going to be cutting out, that that is where you're on your line. And so because I'm making this a bit longer here, I'll show you. Oops, I guess I better turn it on. As I was saying, we want to make sure that where that tip is, that it's cutting just beyond. So I'll bring you in there real close so you can see that. So you can see that where that cut is just on the outside edge of the line. I think that's probably going to be good. So we'll go ahead and run that there. I'll double check that with the tape measure, but I think we're about a 1/16 beyond the line, which is where I want it to be. I moved it back just a little bit more, and I'm checking from here now to here, and it's 10 inches. So, you know, give or take 1/8, it's fine. I've also moved it down here, and I can double check that by just simply, it's just shy of 10 1/4. So we're good. So we'll go ahead and cut this now. Voila. Oh, I've missed that. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Wow, that's a heavy piece of metal. All right, there we go. So how did we come out? Will all be dipped. It's 3/4 inch. I know I didn't steal that from Derek. I've said that for years. Here we go. Just a red hair wide over there. We're fine. Now, this way. Probably shouldn't have this flammable right there. So, seeing as I already have this laid out here nicely, good enough for the girls I go with, right? Don't tell my wife I said that. Look at my hip to be a square. So we have a very beautiful piece of frame rail here. It's all done. Now all we have to do is finish it up. So the next part will be the fun part of bending it in the sheet metal brake. So we start in here. The other thing I need to do is transfer some of these lines to the other side because I think these two have to be on one side and the others are reverse bend. So I need to flip this over and make those 3/4 inch lines on the back side so that I know where to bend it when I get to that point. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. Isn't that beautiful about the plasma cutter? I can hold this. It's warm here, but not bad. You can use a piece of wood and it didn't burn it at all. Yeah, I've had this thing, oh my goodness, since 1994 probably, maybe 1993. I love it. I've missed it so much. It's been several years that it's been dead. And again, Chris, I can't thank you enough for fixing it for me. Saved me about $1,800 in buying a new Hypertherm. And as much as I'm tempted to go with a cheaper one if I have to, and I might, Hypertherm is just absolutely the best. And I'm not paid to say that. They last forever. So awesome. All right, I knew this was probably going to happen. Should be able to bend this at 36 inches, but limitations of this tool anyway. I started to bend, and because this edge is so small here, it buckled here. So I need to go and get a piece of angle iron to screw on here. I need it to be removable, but that will give me more of a bending edge here. I don't have a piece that's 36 inches long here in the shop, so I'm going to run up to the hardware store, get a piece that I can run some taps in there. It's the way it goes, you know, stuff happens. So I knew this day was going to come when I was going to run something that was a little bit too heavy for the capacity of this machine, and that's what we're running into now. But I had a plan B, and I have a plan C. So I'm going to run up and get a piece of angle iron to put on there that will allow me to make this bend. Should allow me to make both of those bends without any difficulty at all. Just a piece that's about probably 1.5 inches wide will give me enough stability here to do this. So because it's just rolling around underneath. So again, limitations of this cheap piece of garbage, but it does the job. So it's okay. I knew I was going to have to do this. One of the joys of living out in the country, and it's not a complaint, I would much rather live there than live the life that I do with the cars and live in town, because I've been there, I've done that, and it's not fun when you have neighbors that don't appreciate the craftsmanship of your hobby. Anyway, so 8 miles from town or so-ish, and I just realized that our local Ace Hardware went out of business, which is where I would buy this stuff, but I believe that our Tractor Supply has it, so go up there. Hopefully I can get a piece of 36 inch, doesn't need to be very thick, 16th hopefully, 1/8 inch piece of angle iron and some bolts and a tap, because I'm not sure I have a tap the size I want, to bolt that on there, drill some holes, and that should make it work. So it'll be good. Probably not going to include any of that work in the episode, but I just wanted to mention that I try to make these a day in the shop with me, and so this is part of it. Road trip running to town, and it's pushing lunchtime, so I'll probably hit the local booger swing and pick up something to eat while I'm up in town. That'll save a little bit of time also. So 9.27 hours later, 2 broken taps and a lot of pain in the butt I got to put on there. Bolts were a little long. This metal is garbage. The surface on the top isn't actually perfectly square, so it's going to work. I think we're good, so I'm ready to. I just want to clean this up a little bit. But that's, I think that's going to do the job for sure. And so we'll see. That allows me a lot more edge here now. And the other thing I want to do, and I'm probably not going to do it now, is I want to add some longer handles so I get a lot more leverage. There are, if you have one of these or if you buy one, there are tutorials out there on the web on how to do some of what I'm doing here to them, reinforce these things and make them a little better. There's a ton more I want to do to it, but I figured I would do it just like this. As I needed to make the improvement, I'll make the improvements. So I think we're good to go. And for today, if I need to, I'll just put a couple pieces of pipe on there for more leverage. But the problem I had wasn't leverage. The problem was this edge here for bending was slipping around underneath, and it wasn't bending. So a little bit of prep sol, get the grease off, and all right, let's try again. Let's see if we have a little better success this time. From everything I've read and everything I've seen about this sheet metal brake, this is supposed to be the cat's meow for taking care of this issue. Looks like our little black line is just about gone, which is what I want. just keep the dang thing from... It's being persnickety, that's for sure. Somebody, it'd be nice to have another set of hands, but it's all good. Okay, here we go. There we go. I think we're golden. Another thing that they do is make a base for this unit so that you can stand right here. So when you're pulling up, it's attached to a big base, and that would be nice for me anyway, being as I'm 6'3". Let's find out how she works. She works good. Okay, don't want to go all the way. Yeah, whew, works good. I don't want to go all the way like I mentioned because I want to be able to bend the other one as well. So let's get that done. Alright, so it worked really well, better than the last side because I have more experience. As you can see, I didn't go 100% straight. You can see that. So I will finish that in a different way, and I haven't determined what it's going to be yet. But I wanted to be able to get these bends here, and you can see these are pretty well perpendicular, 90 degrees to the sides. So I think that's good. I think this one actually turned out better than the other one. So the main thing we need to do is get this squeezed together, and then there may be a little bit of tweaking to do. We had to do that on the other side. Of course, with this one being as long as it is, that's going to provide a bit more of a challenge. But I got a couple ideas how I'm going to finish squeezing this down. So should be pretty easy to do. This is my first option here. Just put it in the vise, squeeze it up a couple places. I think it's going to work okay like that. Hopefully we're square, but we'll find out. A little hammer and dolly won't be a big deal. Squeeze that a little bit past where it needs to be. So it's still not, it's still not 100% straight up and down, but that's okay. I'm going to do it little bits at a time. Try to keep that bottom as flat as I can while I'm doing this. Turning out all right. We'll get this crisped up a little bit, but we're doing pretty well. Another way I could do this is with a couple of C-clamps. I don't have a huge vise here, but I think it's big enough for this. I do have a bigger vise with my bead roller in it over on the freeze there, so that could work also. Okay, pretty good. Okay. Yeah, not bad. It's got a little bit of a bow in here, but not bad. I ended up denting it in one spot. We'll get that out. Yeah, I was being a little bit aggressive there with the jaws of the vise, and I think it caught it with the little pipe clamp in there. It's actually pretty good. Actually, it's really good. It surprised me. I thought it was going to be cattywampus a little bit, but it's not at all, I don't think. Yeah, the one side is real straight, and so we got a good 90, and this side is out just a little bit, but not much. So we'll work on that just a bit more here. All right, so in the time lapse, which seemed like it lasted probably forever, I was using pine persuasion duddy. The reason I'm using wood is because it will move the metal around without leaving dents like a hammer. I also use the slapping file. Again, this will move metal around without leaving dents. And my goal was when this was squeezed together before, the bottom was crooked. So my goal was to bend this flange a little bit, make a little more room, crisp up the edge, and then this bottom edge, because of the way the sheet metal brake is, wasn't quite as crisp as I wanted. So I was paying very careful attention to how I was twisting that. If I loosen this up, this is going to spread, and I'm okay with that because in the car I will squeeze it together. I'll probably do a little more work on it so it's pretty much straight anyway. But remember, it's going to be attaching to the frame on both ends, so it's going to naturally squeeze into position anyway. But I didn't want it to be crooked when it squeezed, and now it's not. So even though you can see it's a little bit splayed, it's flat across the bottom and the edges are straight, and when I squeeze it together you can see that it squares up. So I probably will spend a little more time on it, but I'm pretty comfortable with the way this is right now. It looks good, there's no dents in it, it's not twisted anymore. The other end is got a little bit of a wow in the very, very end. That's because I dropped it. Good. So the same thing down here when I squeeze it together, as you see, hopefully you can see this, everything squares up and becomes uniform. And that's the main thing. So even though it's a little bit spread apart, I'm not worried about that. We will be squeezing it in the car, or I may just go ahead and put a couple of little braces inside to hold it in position. Doesn't matter. We'll see when I get in the car. You know how I work. I kind of figure things out as I go. So the next step on this, and I need to go back and watch the other episode again on this, is find where that cut is in here, and then make that V cut so that it matches the other side, matches what was in the factory, so that where that frame does that little bit of a, like this in there, that'll be there. And if I remember right, I cut it, spread it, and then welded it that way. So I'll probably just let, once I know where it's at, I will cut it and let it fall naturally into position. But I would say we have a piece of frame rail done for the back of the passenger side of the car. That's a good piece of work done right there. Like I said, it needs a little bit more massaging, but you get the picture. You've seen the other episodes, so nothing new to be seen here, but turned out really good. And I was glad to get to share a little bit more of some of those techniques using both the slapping hammer or the slapping file and just a block of wood. I use softwood. I want something that's softer than the metal so that it's that dents. So the point of the wood is to move the metal without denting the metal. And as you can see by that piece, that's been accomplished. It looks nice. I actually got most of the other jaw marks dollied out of it when I put it over that piece of angle iron in the vise. And the bottom needs just a little bit of work. It's a little bit wavy here and there, but that'll be real easy to just go through and dolly that out real quick. But it's perfectly fine the way it is. It's not structural, it's just me being me. There's a couple little waves in there that I would like to just smooth out a little bit. But you know what, it's a frame rail, it's fine. By the time I cut a drain hole or three in there, and I got a few other things to put on there. I did crawl under the car, see how it was going to fit, and it's going to fit well. I can't fit it in there because of the other piece of frame is in there right now. And I'm really seriously thinking I might drop that shock cross member out of there the rest of the way so that I can clean up above it. I got to see how the other side is attached, but I did find my spot weld drill that it was missing for a little while, and I did find that today, so it's all good. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go yet, but leaning that way as I've had time to think. Lots of time to think in the last weekend because we were down in Texas. If you saw that episode, check that out. It's not so much a car episode, but there is a little bit of Challenger content in there. But I just thought I'd share the journey with you of going to Texas and the part that's there that I picked up for the car that my son Joe got. So it was a great time. We had a really good trip. everything was good. If you haven't gone back and seen the early parts of what this car was like when we started, I think it's worth the effort to do that, even if you don't go all the way back to the beginning. But the first episode, which I think is actually 4 videos, where we were hauling it out of the field, popping the roof out, what this car was like. It's come a long ways, and I know to most of you it still looks like a rusty old turd, but it's going to radically change very quickly soon. The goal, of course, was to have this car back on its feet by spring, even though technically it is the 2nd or 3rd day of spring now. We're not quite there. We actually had a nice day, so I could pull the cars out, get the sheet metal out here to work with the plasma cutter. Tomorrow it's supposed to rain, which is why I swapped up my shop cleaning day and decided to work today, even though it's messy. Fortunately, I didn't break my neck today, so that's good. So what's coming? We've got more floor pan work to do, obviously, on the passenger side rear, underneath the rear seat part like we did on the driver's side. Not as bad, but there's still some work to do there. And the thing that I'm really excited about is building the trunk floor. I'm really excited about that because I've named the car. And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you probably saw the post about that a few days ago. But from here on out, and probably in this episode title, this is going to be known as the Stitches Challenger. Obviously, we're stitch welding the car back together again, and I just feel like that's a catchy name for it. So this old girl is Stitches, and this is the 70 Stitches Challenger project. So you'll see that probably coming in. I actually want to get some t-shirts made up with this car on it, and Stitches 1970 Challenger or something like that. So if anybody's interested, drop a comment down there, and we'll get some of those made up. I'm going to get some made for me anyway, so it's not like I'm going to be putting them out there yet. I'm working towards getting a website up eventually, but I have so many other business ventures, so many other websites that I'm a part of. I just decided to hold off on this one for a little bit on My Car Shop. But so yeah, trunk floor is coming. Some of them I'm going to reuse, some of the old, like there's this piece here that goes up by the spare tire mount. I'll probably reuse some of that, but then I'm also going to do some custom work here in the trunk, I think. I'm also pondering, I got to look at these doors and see, but I'm pondering doing some custom door panels out of tin. And what I see in my head may never become a reality, but it's a thought. So give me your thoughts. Would you like to see custom door panels made out of sheet metal? They wouldn't just be flat pieces of metal. There would be some cool stuff to them. Don't know. We'll see. I do have a factory door panel around here somewhere, so that gives me some possibilities to play off of that and make something that I won't say resembles, but hints at what the factory door panels were like. I don't know, just thinking out loud. But it was an intriguing idea. I've been actually thinking about it for a few weeks, and then I saw another show today, can't remember the name of the channel, where he was actually making some, and I went, golly, that is nice. I really like that. So, thoughts anyway. We have a lot more to do, obviously. The rear window part of this car is really, really bad. I'm excited about fixing that as well, but I think that's going to be after we get the rear of this car buttoned up. That's probably the next step. We'll get the frame rails in, the floor pan in, and then maybe tear out the back glass once it's back on its own wheels and get that rear window area fixed. It's really, really bad. I'm weird, I know, but that excites me. I love fixing stuff like that. All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said, drop some comments down there in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. If you haven't seen the rest of the channel, please go check it out. I'm not doing this the way that a lot of guys would do. As I've said before, I enjoy fabricating, and this is just a driver, so I don't care if it's factory right. I want something I can go out and have fun with, and I didn't spend a small fortune on. So actually, I do have a tech tip how-to coming, talking about that very thing, so watch for that as well. All right, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do hit the bell for notifications. If I didn't say that, we are on Facebook and Instagram /MyCarShop. And you know how we always end it. Rock.